today's video. Today I'm doing an updated 2024 presidential election prediction based on all the latest polls in every single state around the country. Before getting into the prediction itself, I do want to note there are some states that do not currently have any polls or polling data on the RCP average right now. So what I've done is I've assigned the states how we fully expect they're going to vote on election night. Despite the fact they don't have any polling, we are very, very confident that these states will all vote this way on election night, given their historical voting records and trends. For instance, we know a state like Illinois, despite having no polling data, will vote for Kamala Harris, and a state like Iowa, despite not having any polling data, will vote for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. So with that said, let's get into the video. We're going to start on the west and work our way east, starting with the state of Washington and its 12 electoral votes. Washington and its 12 electoral votes right now has a poll that has from July that had Harris up 15, one from July that had Harris plus 5, and one from September that has Harris up 21. The most recent poll has Harris up 21. There is no average for this, but when you calculate it, it's going to be over 10% of the vote, which is enough to put the state of Washington into the safe Harris-Walz column. Next, we're going to move to the state of California. California and its 54 electoral votes. We're in the polling average right now. Harris has a 23.7% lead over Donald Trump in the state of California. That is certainly going to be big enough to give Harris and Walz a big win in the state of California. That gets them over 100 electoral votes. I'm going to come back to the states of Nevada and Arizona, both of which are expected to be very close toss-up states. And I'm going to move up north to the state of Montana, where right now in the polling average, Donald Trump leads with 17.4% of the vote over Kamala Harris, 56.4 to 39. Montana certainly going to be a safe Donald Trump state come election day. I'll move right next door of Montana to North Dakota. In the state of North Dakota, with its 3 electoral votes, a poll from late September has Trump up 27 points. That's fully in line with what we expect to happen in that state. North Dakota is going to be safe for Donald Trump. Now we're going to go to the state of Utah. Utah and its 6 electoral votes. The state of Utah has one poll from early August, but Trump was leading it by 32 points. That is pretty much in line with what we expect to happen on Election Day. So we can say that Donald Trump will win the state of Utah and its 6 electoral votes in a safe margin. 100 for Harris and Walz, 84 for Trump and Vance. Next, we're going to go to the state of Colorado. Colorado and its 10 electoral votes. Used to be a battleground state. This time around, not so much. A poll from a Democratic affiliated pollster, but a plus 11 margin for Harris back in the middle of September. That's in line with what we expect to happen. Harris is projected to win the state of Colorado in a safe margin, over 10% of the vote. Now we'll move to the state of New Mexico, just south of Colorado, 5 electoral votes. A little bit more competitive than Colorado is. Only 3 polls been conducted, but it is a plus 8 margin for Kamala Harris in the state of New Mexico. The Trump campaign has really not made much of a significant effort in trying to contest this state because I think they know New Mexico is likely going to be a Harris-Walz state. The question is the margin. Right now, it is a likely Harris and Walz state. Next, we're going to go to the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma and its 7 electoral votes. One poll from the Sooner poll back in late August has Trump up by 16 points. That is enough to put it in the safe Donald Trump column. Oklahoma and its 7 electoral votes go for Donald Trump. Now we'll go to the state of Texas with its 40 electoral votes. Texas, one of the biggest electoral vote prizes of the night. And surprisingly, some actually pretty close polling where Trump is at 5.7% lead over Harris, 50.5 to 44.8. A lot of polls in the last few days and weeks have it as plus 5, plus 6, plus 7. So certainly one that could potentially be close. But 5.7%, that would be enough to put the state of Texas into the likely Donald Trump column. Texas and its 40 electoral votes go for Donald Trump. Now we'll move to the state of Arkansas. Arkansas with its 6 electoral votes. In the state of Arkansas, one poll from early September has Trump up 15% of the vote, plus 15 in Arkansas. That puts the state of Arkansas into Donald Trump's safe column. Now we're looking at the state of Missouri. Missouri with its 10 electoral votes. Missouri has a plus 10 Trump poll from the Hill Emerson. That is just enough to put Missouri into the safe Donald Trump column. Now we'll go to Ashland, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. This is one of the closest districts to watch across the country, along with Maine's 2nd district. That is potentially a toss-up district when you look at the congressional vote split up of Nebraska and Maine. Nebraska's second is currently plus 10 by Harris in the polling average, plus 11 by CNN, plus 9 New York Times. The average is 10 points, which puts it just on the dot enough to put Nebraska's second into the safe Harris-Walz column. And now we're going to move to the state of Minnesota. Minnesota and its 10 electoral votes. Let's look at Minnesota. We're right now in the polling average. Harris has a 49% lead to Trump's 44.3. Of course, Minnesota is the home state of Harris's running mate, Tim Walz. And right now it's a 4.7% lead. Not enough to be likely, just able to put in the lean column. But Harris and Walz are certainly favored to win the state of Minnesota, but under 5, so it will be going in the lean Democratic column. Next, we'll go to the state of Indiana. Indiana and its 11 electoral votes, not expected to be a very competitive state. Trump is leading over Harris, 16.5% of the vote in the RCP average. Indiana goes into the safe Donald Trump column. Now we have the state of Ohio. Ohio with its 17 electoral votes. Once upon a time, Ohio was the bellwether of all bellwethers on the electoral map. Now it has moved more to a likely Republican, borderline safe Republican state at the presidential level, where in the RCP average right now, Donald Trump leads Kamala Harris by 7.4% of the vote in the average. That is enough to put the state of Ohio into the likely Donald Trump column. Now we go to the state of West Virginia, just south of Ohio. West Virginia, there's been one poll back from late August that has Trump up 27 points. That will be enough to put the state of West Virginia into the safe Donald Trump column. Now we're going to go to the state of Virginia. Virginia and its 13 electoral votes. Virginia is a state that has been a pretty reliably Democratic state that used to be a swing state, now a Democratic state. And the Trump campaign early on certainly wanted to make a run at Virginia and believes they have a good chance at winning the state of Virginia. But right now in the polling average, Harris has a lead of 6.4% in the state. A few polls in the last few days have come out that showed Harris up 11, Harris up 8. A little bit different from the Rasmussen plus 3, Mary Washington plus 2. It seems Virginia is more aligning with the likely characterization than the lean characterization in Virginia. Still, nonetheless, Virginia goes in the likely Harris-Tim Walz column. North Carolina we'll come back to because, like Nevada and Arizona, that is one of the closest states we're watching on election night. South Carolina and its 9 electoral votes. Right now, there's been one poll by Winthrop, so there's not been a ton of polling, but it is plus 10 for Trump, which is enough to put the state of South Carolina into the safe Donald Trump column. Georgia, we are going to skip as well because that is a very important swing state we are going to watch. And the state of Florida, 30 electoral votes. Of course, they just got hit by Hurricane Milton, and we're all, of course, praying and thinking everything for people in Florida, hoping they have not been affected by that storm too bad. In the state of Florida, right now in the polling average, Trump is up by 6.2% in the state of Florida. That would be a double his margin from 2020, where he won by about 3.1, 3.2. Trump is now up 6.2% in the polling average in the state of Florida, including a New York Times Siena poll that has Trump up 14% of the vote in the state of Florida. If anything like that happens on election night, that would be a massive margin for Trump in that state and could be a potential sign that Trump is in for a very, very early election night win if he's winning Florida by 14 or 15%. That would be very much unheard of. At the presidential level, though, plus 6.4, that would put Florida, into the likely Donald Trump column. Trump is at 218. Harris and Walz are at 139. At this point in the night, Trump has also won every single state, I believe, that he won back in 2020. And now it goes, where do we go from here? Looking at the map and see where things go. Now we're going to go to the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland, where there may be a potential Senate race underway that could be competitive, but at the presidential level, not so much. Harris leads 29.4% in the RCP average, so certainly Maryland is expected to be a safe Democratic state for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now we're going to look at the state of Delaware. The state of Delaware, the home state, of course, of President Joe Biden. On the presidential level, only one poll conducted by the University of Delaware. Harris is up over Trump by 20% of the vote. We can fully expect Delaware will be a safe Democratic state. The state of Pennsylvania, again, very important swing state we're going to skip over. We're going to go to the state of New Jersey with its 14 electoral votes, a state that is very much expected to be a Democratic state, and there's not been any polling data conducted, but I did want to mention this because the Trump campaign released a statement yesterday saying they intend to contest New Jersey and believe they have a good chance of winning New Jersey. I have not seen anything that would suggest New Jersey is in play in this election. Maybe they have internal polling that says different from what we have in RCP and other websites, but I strongly believe New Jersey will be a safe Democratic state. I don't really see much of a scenario where New Jersey is going to be a really competitive state. Now to the state of New York, 28 electoral votes, the former home state of President Donald Trump. Right now in the RCP average, Harris has a lead over Trump in the state of New York by 13.5% of the vote, narrower than what it was in 2020 and 2016, but Harris still holds a safe margin lead in the state of New York. I'm sure that's a state that Donald Trump would love to win, but right now the polls show Harris is looking to win the state very, very handily. Next, we're going to go up to New England, and starting with the state of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut right here, where it's 7 electoral votes, we have one poll that shows Harris up 16% of the vote. That would be enough to put Connecticut into the safe Democratic column. We'll move right next door to Connecticut to the state of Rhode Island. The state of Rhode Island, only 4 electoral votes, but one poll from UNH back in the middle of September has Harris up here by 20% of the vote. That would put the state of Rhode Island into the safe Kamala Harris column. Right now, the electoral map is Harris-Walz 205, Trump-Vance 218, and now we move to the state of Massachusetts. The state of Massachusetts, one of the most democratic states in the entire country. The polling average right now for RCP has Harris up 29.5% to... The RCP average now has Harris leading over Trump by 29.5 percentage points. Massachusetts, unsurprisingly, going to be a safe Democratic state for Harris and Walz. 216 Harris-Walz, 218 Trump-Vance. Now we'll move to the state of Vermont, one of the earliest states to have their polls closed on election night. The UNH poll back from the middle of August has Harris up by 41 points over Donald Trump. We don't need much more polling than that. We know Vermont's going to be a very safe Democratic state. Vermont goes for Harris and Walz. The state of New Hampshire, a state that was decided by only 1,000 votes back in 2016, voted for Joe Biden by about 7 to 8% in 2020, and now it's looking like it's going to do that once again, where the poll average in the state of New Hampshire currently has Harris leading Trump by 7.4% of the vote, following some polls from St. Anselm, UNH, and WHDH-TV Emerson. Shows that New Hampshire is really not too much in a competitive state this election around. It will not be a under 1% of the vote election. It's looking like Harris is on track to win the state by similar numbers that Biden did back in 2020. We can put the state of New Hampshire into the likely Harris-Walz column. Now the state of Maine, where Maine, like Nebraska, splits up with electoral votes by congressional district. So this may get a little bit complicated, but first we're going to go the state at large, the state of Maine at large, then we'll go by the districts. The state of Maine at large right now has Harris plus 9, Harris plus 17, and Harris plus 9. When you average these votes up, that'll be more than 10% of the vote. So we can say Maine at large will be safe for Harris and Walz. Now we're going to look at the 2 congressional districts, where the Maine's first district has Harris up 27.5%. A lot of the bigger population centers in Maine, I believe, for instance, like Portland, is going to be in Maine's second congressional district. So that will put Maine's first district into the safe Harris-Walz column. Now, the second congressional district, which is a lot of rural Maine, where there's not too many people, but there are a pretty sizable amount of people in Maine's second district. This is one where it's actually very, very close in the polling. It's a district, I believe, that is Trump plus 2 or Trump plus 3, and Trump has shown he is more likely than not going to win this district. The polls have showed it very, very close. I don't personally believe on election night Maine's second district is going to be this close. I think Trump is going to win it by at least 5 percentage points, but the polling average right now only has it as Trump plus 1. So in this video, which is just the polls, I'm going to put it as lean to tilt. Plus 1 would be tilt. So very, very close in Maine's second district. I think in election night it's more likely going to be Trump plus 5, but that's what the polls say, and this video is all about what the polls say right now. So going through every state that's either safe or likely right now, Harris and Walz get up to 226 electoral votes. Trump and Vance get up to 219 electoral votes. This is where, in my view, the election really begins. Now we're looking at the states that we know are going to be some of the most competitive in the entire country. Starting with the state of Nevada, Nevada and its 6 electoral votes. It's a state that voted for Biden in 2020, voted for Clinton in 2016, and is incredibly close right now. Harris only has a 1% lead over Trump in the RCP average, a lead that has been pretty steady across about the last few weeks or so, but it is very, very close. Back around September 20th, it was only a difference of 0.2%, and when Harris first entered the race, Trump was actually leading here by a pretty sizable margin. Trump's numbers have really not gone up or down all that much. It's more Harris's numbers have shot up over the last few weeks, where Trump has remained about 47-48% of the vote. Harris has jumped up to 48.8 to 49%. That's where things stand in Nevada. Based on that 1% characterization, we have to call the state of Nevada as tilt for Harris on election night. If you saw my election night video beforehand, if not, I recommend you do go watch it. I made kind of a hot take that I don't think on election night Harris is going to win the state of Nevada. I think Donald Trump will actually win it, and what will be a surprise. But the polls say Harris is up in Nevada, and the purpose of this video is showing what the polls say. The polls show her up right now. Now we're going to go south of Nevada to the state of Arizona. Arizona, it's 11 electoral votes. One where Trump has been leading in the polls for a while now, but now it's actually getting a lot closer in the polls, where it was very close early on in August. Trump started to take about a 1 to 2% vote lead, and now in the last few days, the number's been getting actually pretty close. Trump is now down to 0.9% lead in the polls. However, Trump still holds a lead, and the last few days have had a few polls from Emerson, Fabrizio, and Insider Advantage showing Trump leading in the state. A few showing Harris up, but with a lot of undecided vote. Right now, it's looking like, and the polls show, Arizona is tilt for Donald Trump at this time. That puts Trump up to 230, Harris and Walz at 232. Very, very close election leading into the Sun Belt states of Georgia and North Carolina. We're in the state of Georgia and the 16 electoral votes. Donald Trump currently has a lead in the RCP average of 0.8% of the vote. A state that, like Arizona, Trump has had a pretty good lead of 1 to 2 percentage points for a while now. And now as the election gets closer, it looks like that Trump's numbers are starting to tail off a little bit, where some polls have come out in the last few days showing a 1-point race, a tied race. Quinnipiac has Trump +5, but the other polls have +1, +2. Georgia, the numbers are getting very, very close as well, but the average has Trump at 0.8%. In the tilt column, we can give the state of Georgia to Donald Trump. That gets Trump up to 246, Harris and Walz at 232. Now we go to the state of North Carolina, a state that has been very, very close for a long time now in the polls, been back and forth. Trump currently holds a 0.6% lead in the state of North Carolina, following a slew of polls in the last few weeks showing Trump +1, +2, +1, +2 in the state, and a few showing him tied. Very, very tight race, almost half a percentage point separating Trump and Harris. North Carolina incredibly close, but based on this video, North Carolina goes into the tilt Donald Trump column. Trump at 262, Harris and Walz are at 232. Now we go to the state of Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes. I've been saying for the last few months now, I think whoever wins the state of Pennsylvania is going to win the presidential election. And in the last few days, Donald Trump has actually regained the lead in the state of Pennsylvania in what has been a very close back and forth race. Trump started out with a 3.6% lead in the state. Harris joined quickly, went up in the polls, took a lead in Pennsylvania. Trump tied it. Harris took the lead again. Trump tied it. Harris took the lead again. And now Trump has gone ahead and is up by 0.3%. I expect this race fully to be very close, back and forth, leading up until Election Day, with most pundits not knowing what is going on in the state of Pennsylvania, a state that is incredibly close and is likely going to be decided by a very close margin on Election Day. 0.3% separating Trump and Harris, just by the absolute thinnest of margins. That would put the state of Pennsylvania into the tilt Donald Trump column. That would get Trump at 281. Harris and Walz are at 232, which means Trump breaks 270 and has enough electoral votes to win the 2024 presidential election. But the video is not done there. We still have 2 states remaining, Michigan and Wisconsin. And we actually have a new development in the state of Michigan, something we have not seen yet before, where Michigan, Donald Trump has now taken the lead in the state of Michigan. He is now leading Harris 0.7% in the RCP average. This is a state that's honestly, we knew it was a competitive state, but Trump's leads kind of come out of nowhere. Harris has been leading here by over 2% or 2% exactly for the last few weeks now. And the last week, Trump's numbers has really started to go up. Harris's has really started to go down, where now Trump is up to a 0.7% lead over Harris in the state of Michigan. That's a larger lead than Trump has right now in Pennsylvania and in North Carolina. So it's very, very interesting. And what we thought was going to be the most Democratic of the 3 Rust Belt states, Michigan has now had a very large lead, and I believe the largest lead for Trump out of any of the Rust Belt states. So that's a very interesting development and one to watch for leading up until Election Day. So that's very interesting. Michigan now plus 0.7%, for Trump and Vance in the state. Michigan, it's 15, go for Donald Trump. Trump and Vance are now at 296. Harris and Walz are at 232. And lastly, we have the state of Wisconsin with its 10 electoral votes. This is one that's very, very close, has been for a while. Harris is at 48.4%. Trump is at 48%. There's still a little bit of third-party or undecided vote left, but Harris has a 0.4% lead over Trump. Like Michigan, the polls are getting very, very close. Harris's numbers across the last week or so have been going down from 48.8. They've gone down to 48.4. Very, very close. It'll be interesting to watch how Wisconsin ends up being on election night. And, I mean, this one really can go either way. In my election night video, I very narrowly gave it to Donald Trump. I think I gave him it around like 7 a.m. on the morning after Election Day. So, I mean, I think it's going to be very, very close. The polls right now still have Harris leading in this state by 0.4%. I would not be shocked one bit to check the polls a week from now and have Trump narrowly leading in the state of Wisconsin. But right now, the polls have Harris up by 0.4, so we will give the state of Wisconsin to Kamala Harris in the tilt column. So just going off of the polling averages right now in every single state around the country, right now, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have 296 electoral votes. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have 242 electoral votes. This is enough to make Donald Trump the President of the United States elect, the 47th President of the United States, and to make J.D. Vance his running mate, the next Vice President of the United States as well. This is very, very interesting because we still have an incredibly close race. Every single one of the toss-up states right now is 1% of the vote or under, which signifies a very close race that could really go either way. But it's hard to deny the fact, especially in the last week, it has been a very good week for Donald Trump when it comes to polling. He's drastically improved in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin. And even though he has faced a little bit of narrowing numbers in Arizona and Georgia and a little bit in North Carolina, his gains in Pennsylvania and Michigan have certainly helped him a lot in reaching over that 270 threshold. It'll be interesting to see how the polls continue to shift leading up until Election Day, because I'm sure they will. But right now, it looks very, very interesting. Trump is taking the lead in a few, or most of these toss-up states, except for Wisconsin and Nevada. Those states are very close. All of them are under 1%, though, so we have to wait and see how they end up going on Election Day. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really, really, really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day, so I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.